Call this meeting, the Alexander County Board of Commissioners, into session at this time. This, the 20th day of September 2021. Chairman Yoder will have the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Marty Pennell. Please stand. Our kind and most gracious, that we've come before you this evening, we've come to you asking your blessings upon each and every one gathered here tonight. We'd ask that you send your healing power down to take to those who have been sick. Be with those families who have lost loved ones. Be with those military personnel, the 13 military personnel that were killed in Afghanistan. Be with them and their families, and look after them and bring peace to their families. We'd ask that you'd be with our military, both at home and abroad. Be with our law enforcement and our first responders. Be with our leaders on the federal, state, and local level. Help those leaders that they would make the right decisions following thy guidance. For all those things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Direct your attention to the American flag, please. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. At this time, the Alexander County Board of Commissioners is going to have a special recognition for the Commissioner, Dr. Jeffrey Peel. We lost Jeff a while back due to an accident. Jeff was an outstanding member of this board. And when he was here, I can always say one thing about Jeff, is the fact that when he came to a board meeting, he was prepared, he had studied, he knew what was going on, and he stayed on top of things. And he did an outstanding job as being a county commissioner in Alexander County, both for the members of this board and also for the citizens of this county. He did a great job. And at this time, it gives me the honor of presenting the key to the county. And Renee, if you'd come up to the podium, and then we have two recognitions. I'm going to do one of them, and then Commissioner Marty Pennell is going to do the other. But Renee, it says here, the Alexander County Board of Commissioners hereby presents this key to the county upon the family of Dr. Jeffrey T. Peel in recognition of his many years of dedicated service to Alexander County, presented September the 20th, 2021. And we'd like to make this presentation to you and tell you that it was thrilled to work with him, and I just always found that he was always prepared. He always was. And I have to agree on another thing I heard you talk about. He had never met a stranger. Strangers not come up to the door yet. And I know when we were in Washington, his favorite thing, he'd look over and say, I forget what, a Reuben sandwich. He loved that Reuben sandwich, and we had a good time and did that each and every time. But on behalf of the commissioners and the citizens of this county, I want to present this to you. Thank you, man. Bless you. Bless you.
I'd like for the entire family to come over here. Jeff would not have it any other way.
No.
And we've got a grandbaby here, and boy, did he like his grandchildren. So Jeff was an amazing friend, an absolutely awesome public servant. He was my brother in Christ. And my friend. I'll do my best to include you. Resolution honoring the life of Dr. Jeffrey Peel, Alexander County Commissioner. Whereas Alexander County and its citizens lost a true public servant, Dr. Jeffrey Peel, on July the 19th, 2021. And whereas he was elected to his first term as an Alexander County Commissioner in served as chairman in 2019. And whereas, while on the Board of Commissioners, Dr. Peel was instrumental in countless projects with a positive impact on the community, including the installation of many miles of water and sewer lines, expansion of broadband services, completion of the Alexander County Services Center, and upgrades to the Rocky Face Park and Wittenberg access. And whereas, he was also heavily involved in the reduction of water tap fees for citizens, reinstatement of longevity for county employees, increased fire taxes for all volunteer fire departments, and development of the courthouse park. And whereas Dr. Peel touched the lives of young and old alike through his participation in various local and state committees. His service as a teacher, a coach, a deacon, and a Sunday school teacher, and his dedication to the staff and students of Alexander County Schools as well as Millersville Christian Academy. And whereas he carried out his duties with optimism and sought to make Alexander County a better place to live, work, and raise a family. And whereas Dr. Peel will be remembered for his innovative ideas, his fearless commitment to standing up for his beliefs, his unselfish devotion to the citizens of Alexander County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Alexander County Board of Commissioners hereby wish to honor the life of our friend, Dr. Jeffrey Peel, and extend our deepest and sincerest condolences to the family on this 20th day of September 2021. We truly appreciate it. Commissioner, won't come up and get a picture with the family, please. Tell us where you want to come.
That way she can. Okay. Good. Thank you. Bless you. The next item on the agenda is Commissioner's Report. Does any commissioner have a report at this time? There being none, gentlemen, you have before you the agenda. I hope if you had the opportunity to look through it. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you very much. The item number 1 on the agenda is the acceptance of Kent Herman to the Alexander County Board of Commissioners. As most of you know, after the passing of Dr. Peel, the Alexander County Republican Party held a meeting which they're, by statute, the party in which the person has passed or has resigned from office, they have the right by law to place someone in that position. And the Republican Executive Committee did meet, and they recommended that Mr. Kent Herman would take that place. So that each and every one of you will know is what the Republican Executive Committee did was they went back and looked at the prior election in the primary, and when they did that, then they got the next person in line, and they came right down the list, and that person was Mr. Kent Herman, and that he was unanimously elected by the Board of Directors to serve as the next county commissioner. And gentlemen, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve Mr. Kent Herman as the replacement for a 2-year period for Dr. Jeff Peel.
Make a motion to accept Kent Herman as the replacement for the vacant board seat.
Second.
Motion is made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Congratulations to Kent Herman. And Mr. Herman is not here tonight because he had a prior engagement because he serves on the National Cattlemen's Committee, and that meeting had already been set up, and he was not able to make it tonight. But I can assure you that knowing Mr. Herman, he'll be here next meeting. So thank you, gentlemen. Item number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Madam Clerk? We did not have anybody at this time to sign up for public comment. Item number 3, 160D, legislative updates and zoning and subdivision ordinance. Ashley Kale, Western Piedmont Council of Governments. And as this is a public hearing, gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion to call this public hearing into session at this time.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, my name's Ashley Kale. I'm with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments. I believe you all received a memo earlier that has all the changes listed in it. So what 160D is, just a brief synopsis, is it's regulations that came down from the state that combine chapters 153A and 160A, that being the enabling statutes for county and municipal zoning and subdivision law, and that has been all combined into one chapter under the state. So now having to go through everyone's ordinances and update it to that. This was originally supposed to be enacted back in July, and we've had a couple of delays here, both on our end and just getting it through here. But so now we're looking to adopt those tonight. So since it's been a while since any of us have been here to go through these, I'll quickly go through each of the changes, and then also if there's any public comment on those changes. Also quickly, there's only one optional change that was made in here. The majority of them are required changes. So for item number 1 in your memo for the zoning ordinance, that is adding the general statute citation, and then also the enabling statute for reference to the official zoning map for the jurisdiction. And that goes for Alexander and Taylor Full, since it is a combined ordinance. Item number 2 is again in the jurisdiction referencing to that zoning map and the state's enabling statute. Also in that, you are now required to keep a updated zoning map. So what we're telling everyone is to keep a yearly update, and that needs to be available at all times to the public, either in a printed or digital format. So item number 3, conditional use permits. It was a terminology change. Those are now called special use permits. Nothing changes otherwise than that. And then, of course, also any citation, since this was the county, the 153A is now considered 160D. There were several definitions that were added as well, and that goes for administrative decision, determination, developer, development, development approval, development regulation, dwelling, evidentiary hearing, legislative decision, and legislative hearing. And that is just to go through and make sure everyone's defining those the same throughout the state. Item number 6, proceedings of commission. This is saying members of commission shall not participate or vote on any quasi-judicial matter in a manner that would violate the affected person's constitutional rights. This mainly being in if you have to vote on a matter and you have any connection to that being familiar or being a person that is wanting to apply for a permit, you would not be able to vote on the matter. And then item number 7 is just adding statute and then clarification that Board of Adjustment hearings are quasi-judicial in nature. Item number 8 is your optional change that has been put in there, and that is for special use permits and allowing minor modification to be made by your planning administrator. So that being a special use permit would normally have to be approved through the boards, and if at the end of that there was any kind of defined here a minor change, instead of having to go through that whole process again, the subdivision administrator could sign off on that change. Item number 9 is concerned to appeals, and that is appealing a decision after it's been made, and that needs to be done within 30 days of receipt of notice. Item number 10, for the zoning enforcement officer. If the zoning enforcement officer has any conflict of interest, they cannot be the final decision maker in a permit. And then that would go to the boards for decision making. Also for the zoning enforcement officer, for inspection of work, they can exercise their power to go onto the property and within reasonable hours and do their inspections. Of course, that is with approval by the property owner, and if needed, if it's off public property, inspection warrant to be issued. For your zoning permits, for item number 12, zoning permits are now vested for 1 year after issuance. And if no significant progress has been made, it would be void. And then from that number 13, the revocation of development approvals are listed there for if a permit has not been acted on or if it was not being acted on as permitted. Item number 14, for the application of a zoning permit, you will now need to provide a written notice of refusal of permits. And then for amendments, all amendments to the zoning ordinance shall go through your planning board before reaching the commissioners. And also for amendments, when you have a public hearing, there's clarification now in the notice who gets access to that written letter for the public hearing, and that was for abutting parcels, sorry. And so that being if there's a street or railroad or other transportation corridor between the parcel applying for a permit and the adjacent parcel, those are considered adjacent. And then with those rezonings and other applications as such, whenever you do approve one of those cases, you'll need to also adopt a brief statement describing whether it is consistent or inconsistent with any adopted plan. And then item number 18 is another for the commissioners this time, any kind of conflict of interest when voting on the matter. And then number 19, and that's the last one for zoning, is about penalties, and that's for providing a written determination of a property that is inconsistent with the zoning ordinance or with their permit. And that is that the zoning enforcement officer shall notify both the developer in the case of a development going on or the property owner by first-class mail. So if, for example, if there's someone renting a property, it doesn't necessarily go to the person renting, it goes to the property owner. And then for the next section here for subdivision changes, there's mostly, in the subdivision ordinance, there was just updating your citations, but it was added that for a subdivision and definition for those that are exempt, the division of a tract in accordance with the intestate succession, so that being subdivision by a will to other family members, that subdivision is exempt. Now, however, if they want to develop on the property, it still applies to the subdivision laws there. And then the next item is to your installation guarantees. There needs to be a town agreement that guaranteeing the required work be binding to subsequent purchasers of a property, and that it be recorded before each section is developed in a major subdivision. And following that, there's also a large update to performance guarantees and the process of filing those. And lastly, there's your variances for subdivisions, and those are following the same variance procedures that are in your zoning ordinance. And that is your updates. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask.
Any questions? It's pretty much a mandate, what I think.
Yeah, and
There's not much we could really say or do, except, thank you for the information, really. But as this is a public hearing, anyone from the audience that would like to ask a question, this is your opportunity to do so at this time.
I'd like to make a statement to the other commissioners, not directly on our mandates here, but in regards to our zoning overall, is as years go by, things change and there's different possibilities and things that weren't thought of back whenever our zoning was put in place, so to speak. I'd like for the commissioners to consider the idea of actually looking a little bit more in depth into the rules that we have in zoning currently to see if we might need to amend some of those rules. Just food for thought.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that and actually have shared that same sentiment several times over the past 5 or 6 years. Because some of our zoning ordinance is rather antiquated. And we obviously, I think we can all say that we are very pro-growth and development as a board and as a county government or governing body. And I would agree with Commissioner Pennell.
Mr. Chairman, maybe that would be something we could look at a little bit further down the road. You can have some meetings on that, so.
Well, at this time, nobody has any questions concerning the legislative updates, because, these are, that's just something that we just need to listen to, so that people will be aware of it, so. If there isn't anything else, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close public hearing.
Second.
Motion is made second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to approve it, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. But at this time, gentlemen, we need to approve this and the changes that have been made I'd entertain a motion at this time to approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the 160D legislative updates pertaining to the zoning and subdivision ordinance as provided by the state.
Well, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 4 on the agenda, public hearing for fiscal year 2023-5310 grant application. Leanne Wisnett, Alexander County Health and Human Services Director.
Thank you, Commissioner Yoder. Thank you for your time. This is our annual 5310 grant. It seems like we just did it, but it's that time again. The funding for this is used through the Department of Social Services for our transportation for enhancing mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. The funding is $194,592. And our match is usually 10%. They always give us that. The state provides 10%. The 194,592 is federal, and then the state does 10 and the county does 10. They always tell us that the state doesn't guarantee you till closer to that time, so I put that as a disclaimer out there. But we have published the resolution, which I'll read to you real quickly. I don't know of any public comment prior to this. We allowed time, but it says, whereas Article,
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
it's all right. Whereas Article 2B of Chapter 136 of the North Carolina General Statutes and the Governor of North Carolina has designated the North Carolina Department of Transportation as the agency responsible for administering federal and state public transportation funds. And whereas North Carolina Department of Transportation will apply for a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration, and receive funds from the North Carolina General Assembly to provide assistance for rural public transportation projects. And whereas the purpose of these transportation funds is to provide grant monies to local agencies for the provision of rural, small urban, and urban public transportation services consistent with the policy required of each funding source for planning, community and agency involvement, service design, service alternatives, training, conference participation, reporting, and other requirements, which includes drug and alcohol testing policies and programs, disadvantaged business entrepreneur programs, and fully allocated cost analysis. And whereas the funds applied for may be administrative, operating, planning, or capital funds and will have different percentages for federal, state, and local funds, whereas non-community transportation applicants may apply for funding for the purpose of service projects under the Capital Purchase of Service Budget Section 5310 program. Whereas Alexander County Department of Social Services hereby assures and certifies that it will provide the required local matching funds, that its staff has the technical capacity to implement and manage the projects, prepare required reports, obtain required training, attend meetings, conferences, and agree to comply with the federal and state statutes, regulations, and executive orders, Section 5333B, warranty, and all administrative requirements related to the application made to and grants received from the Federal Transit Administration, as well as the provision of Section 1001 of the Title 18 USC, whereas the applicant has or will provide an annual certification and assurance to the state of North Carolina required for this project. Now therefore be it resolved that the chairman of Alexander County Board of Commissioners is hereby authorized to submit grant applications for federal and state funding in response to North Carolina DOT's call for projects, makes the necessary assurances and certifications, and be empowered to enter into an agreement with the North Carolina DOT to provide rural, small urban, and urban public transportation services. And we do contract with Greenway Transit to provide these services. These funds are used for medical visits from our seniors as well as trips to the congregate meal sites. Can I answer any questions? That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
Pretty good bit.
Whew.
Well, at this time, gentlemen, I entertain a motion to call the public hearing into session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we open public hearing pertaining to the fiscal year 2023 5310 grant application.
Motion's made, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second, any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, as this is a public hearing, this is the opportunity for the audience to ask any questions or make any statements regarding this application for this grant. Does anyone have any questions? There being none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close public hearing for grant 5310.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. I entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the grant acceptance of 5310.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 5 on the agenda, United Way of Alexander County Community Needs Survey 2021. Diane Little, President of the United Way of Alexander County.
Thank you, gentlemen, for giving me the chance to speak with you. The board that I'm on just took over at the end of January, and we had some questions through the community about, oh, we have a United Way, we still have one. Yes, we do. So I wanted to make you aware of some things with the United Way and what our vision is and what our mission is and so forth. Before we talk about the survey, you see on the slide that's coming up the names of the board of directors. Won't go through all of that with you, but you'll see that we have several retired educators and folks from the YMCA, a guardian ad litem. Everyone there has not served on the board before except for Dr. Jennifer Hefner, the superintendent of schools. What I do want to emphasize, though, about that slide is that we have no paid staff. We don't have an executive director. We just have the board and the officers on the board, and none of us are paid employees. We're all volunteers. So I know there was some concern years ago about the salary with the Charlotte position, and people got, very concerned about that. We don't have that worry to have, and we will not have an executive director until we can fully fund our agencies, and right now we just can't do that. After we took a position, we looked at our vision. It remains the same, and we are trying to help this community in particular and the world, it says eventually. That's a pretty lofty vision. But to achieve their fullest potential in the areas of education, financial stability, and healthy lifestyles, and those are the 3 areas that our agencies must address when they apply for assistance. Our mission is staying the same because we're trying to simply put all those communities together and mobilize the caring power that they demonstrate around the world to achieve the common good. But as I said, our first concern is doing that within this county. Our community, we're trying to mobilize all community agencies, and we haven't done that yet, but we're working with some other agencies to support our residents as they move toward those 3 areas of a stronger lifestyle. I want you to know that our board of directors has received training, and that's our next slide, in these areas, in the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. I'm sure you're familiar with those, but all of these pertain to doing their job that they're supposed to do in a manner with integrity. So they must come to meetings, and they must contribute, they must fulfill their responsibilities, and they must put the organization first and not their own personal interests. They all understand that. You'll see the source listed there for that information. But other training has also been provided on the bylaws of the organization. They sign an annual disclosure statement, conflict of interest statement, and then they've had training on the United Way Code of Ethics. I just wanted to make sure they were ready for the responsibilities that they were going to have to handle. We spent some time reflecting on the past, and we're spending more time now trying to envision the future. But I want to let you know, as we reflected on the past, if we can go to the next slide, we had a difficult year last year before we came on, as everyone did. All the nonprofits, many businesses that were for-profit businesses because of the pandemic. So the fundraising efforts that the previous board could put forth were stymied by the pandemic and lack of personnel. There were only 3 of them at one point, Macy Jones, Dale Clary, and Laura Jameson. They did a marvelous job of holding the organization together. But the result of all this is that we can only fund our agencies at 50% of the amount that they've requested. Instead of funding one agency at 100% and some other agencies at 0%, we decided this was the most equitable way to handle this. So we're funding them at 50%. From our 7 agencies, we had a request for a total of $53,540, and we're funding them at $26,770. That comes in 4 installments, so they don't get all the money up front either. They'll get 2 installments. They've had their first one before the end of the year and 2 in the spring. And I want to tell you about those agencies and what they do for this community. The Alexander Partnership of Children is addressing the area of health, and they purchase child safety seats and then provide training for parents on how to install those and operate them. They also provide CPR and first aid classes for all early childhood educators. Last year, their estimate was 88 families served. That may seem like a low number, but when you look at those 88 families, that branches out as well into the area of child safety, I think. The 4-H program addresses all 3 areas. They have a fantastic youth development program, and it's not showing you here on the total slide, I don't think, the amount of funding that these folks are getting, but I'll go back and allude to that. But they offer youth development in Speedway to healthy living and Real Money, Real World, which I think is something I could use. They served over 5,300 individuals last year, and they had requested 6,000, so they're being funded at 3,000. That's the information that's also on that slide. The Alexander County Rescue and EMS, we all know what a fantastic job they do. They have requested funding for equipment purchase and training, and they listed here the hours of training that they provided in 2020. You see those there, and over 2,400 calls were answered in 2020. We know that they have a broad outreach to the county, and they help us in so many ways. So they had requested $17,000 for equipment purchase and training, and we're only able to give them $8,500. The next one is the YMCA. And one of the most disturbing things that I learned in talking with the YMCA was that 1 in 4 kids in Alexander County lives at the poverty level. You probably have been aware of that, but I think that's a pretty stark number, and we certainly need to do something to address it. They host Bright Beginnings at the beginning of the school year for disadvantaged children, and they take them out and buy clothes and shoes and haircuts for them, anything to get them ready to be excited about going into that classroom for the first day. Alexander County DSS, sometimes they cannot accommodate the needs that are there, and so we have set up an emergency fund for them where they can do so. This is a one-time emergency fund that is accessed because the needs requested are not covered by DSS, but we can help in that area. So they provide emergency power payments and rent and so forth. The Bridge community, I'm not sure you're familiar with the Bridge community as much. I was not before I took on this role, but it is a fantastic organization. They partner with a lot of us in the area. They brought MedAssist to Alexander County a few weeks ago, and they serve as the bridge between the individual who has an emergency need and then the agency who can help them. I cannot write a check to someone who comes to my door and says, you know, I don't have a place to live tonight, but I can talk to Priscilla Jenkins, who's their executive director, and she has resources where she can address that. So I've enjoyed working with her, and we've got some plans for the future. The mobile cafe is the last one. I think we all know how successful that's been. The demand has gone up in the last year tremendously. Now they serve meals 5 days a week instead of 3, and they requested $5,000 for operational expenses, and we're giving them $2,500. You see here some allocation presentations. We'll go on past that in the interest of time. We are trying to get the word out. I presented to the Taylorsville Business Association. I've talked to Rotary. I've done a Zoom for the First United Methodist Church. I'll talk to anybody about United Way and how we need your help. This is the survey that's mentioned in the agenda. We wanted to identify the most critical needs in the county. Unfortunately, we've not had a large response. So you have a copy of that, and I would just love for you guys to complete it before I leave, so I'll have some input from you. We have probably, 18 surveys that are countable, that are scorable right now. But what we're asking is for you to identify your age range and then the area that you live in by school district. And then we're listing these needs and asking you to rank them in order of importance in this county. What's the most critical need? We have this survey in the paper, we have it on Facebook, we have it on our website, and we're still not getting a lot of response. So anything you guys could do to help us publicize that, we would greatly appreciate. Because what we want to do is direct our money in the future to answering those needs. So if homelessness turns up to be number one, that's what we want to look at. I just put this up here to show you the number of responses we've had and the age range. I held Rotary captive one day and made them fill it out, and I've done that at other places. So that's why we're getting these responses. But 15 here, and then I think it's another 11 responses by area. So we want to hear from all the areas and all the age groups if possible, and suggestions that you may have for helping us do that, I would really like to hear. What we're doing right now and in the future is we're focusing on fundraising. We're contacting all of our past donors and our present donors and our prospective donors that we have in the area. We're going to conduct an individual campaign. We're conducting a 365 drive, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. And we hope to sponsor a holiday decoration contest for storefronts in downtown and for the surrounding residential areas. The question mark is there because my board is working on that, and they haven't laid out all the plans yet, so I'm leaving that in an iffy position. But I think that'll be a nice fundraiser for us and for the community as well. And we're going to conduct a corporate campaign, going to these global donors and seeing if somebody would be willing to help us. Let me talk about the 365 drive briefly. We're trying to engage our small businesses here, and what we're asking them to do is to donate $365 a year, $1 a day. They can do it in a lot of different ways. If you can hit that next entry there, please. Yeah. They can make one payment or monthly payments. They can host an in-store promotion where the proceeds from a featured item go towards their pledge. They can engage their employees in raising money, and they can try the Harbinson approach, which you've probably seen if you've read the paper. He is doing the Harbinson Heisman here because he said 40 years ago he scored the first touchdown in Alexander Central High School history in this stadium, and he is donating $40 for every touchdown scored at a home game. So right now he owes us at least $120, and I'm anxious to collect that. What benefits do these folks get? And you see us putting a sticker there on his window. They get a 365 member decal that they can display at their businesses. And they also get their company and their company's website listed in the Times and on our webpage, coming up soon on our Facebook page, in any kinds of reports that we do and other publications. We'll ask them to participate in events or to volunteer at events or simply to come and participate. We'll also give them opportunities for networking with other small businesses in the county. Basically, what this amounts to for them is a lot of publicity, we hope, for their small businesses because they're going to be out there, they're going to be seen on our website and everywhere else. So better business exposure and connection with the community. Of course, we want to use our survey to help us with meeting the needs of our community, and that's the next slide, please. We had hoped to analyze the results of the survey and then sit down with our agencies and with a lot of our donors to ask them to help us develop a strategic plan. Want to thank all of our past donors and our current donors. Our current donors are in blue. The Alexander County school system is fantastic for us. Schneider Mills has been wonderful. We have some of the other folks who are in black right now who are coming on, but these folks have supported us, and we just appreciate it so much. Also, a thank you to our 365 Small Business Circle. We have 11 right now, and we're hoping to get another 11 if possible as my board members go around and solicit them. But to all our donors, what we're saying is, thank you for helping us help our community by giving your time, your talent, and your monetary support. We feel like we're budding right now, and we're trying to grow through the concrete like this little creature is here, and so we're trying to make progress as much as we possibly can. We hope that you'll look at our website. We've revamped that, and we have our 365 businesses there, and we're going to have our agencies and all of our information there. The survey is there. So we are really trying to strengthen this organization and help it have a meaningful impact on the county. I'll tell you one final thing, and then I'm through. We had a call one day from Iredell County Hospice. They had one of our residents in their care. He lived in a single-wide mobile home. He did not have air conditioning. He did not have a fan. And she said, "Can you help?" So I just picked up a fan and went down there. He did not speak English. He was out under his tree sitting there, and I just said his name, and he nodded. And I said, "Well, I'm so-and-so from United Way," and I know he didn't understand me, but he saw that fan. And I motioned to him, and I said, "Can I put this in your house?" He smiled, tears came in his eyes, and he sat there, and he just patted that fan. And I cried, the dog cried, everybody cried. It was terrible. But, you know, that's what this is all about. This is what United Way should be doing, helping people who are really, really in need. I appreciate your time. I'll answer any questions you may have, take any suggestions you may have to make us stronger.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. United Way's always been an organization in this county that's done well to assist and help people and do the things they need to do.
Right.
And
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
we have some of these that are probably filled out. I don't know how many filled theirs out, but you should have a couple coming back to you. Okay? Thank you. All right. Item number 6 on the agenda, Alexandria Industrial Wastewater Project bids. Mr. Rick French, County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Tuesday, August 24th, bids were received for the Alexander Industrial Wastewater Project. The low bid submitted is from Two Brothers Utilities, LLC of Shelby, North Carolina, in the amount of $84,929.68. West recommends awarding the contract to Two Brothers Utilities in the amount of $84,929.68. We need a motion approval
approve,
to
right.
move forward.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve, as stated.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 7, board appointments and reappointments. County Manager, Mr. Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several appointments and reappointments. Region E Aging Advisory Committee, appoint Angela Johnson for 2 years. Animal Control Advisory Board, reappoint Dr. Hannah Schaefer, Leanne Wisnett, Jason Moore, Whitney Price, Mike Deal, Garrett Davis, and Maggie Dahlstrom for 2 years. The Council on Aging, appoint Christy Hunt and reappoint Chris Howells, 3 years. Jury Commission, reappoint Dale Fox for 2 years. And for the Western Piedmont Regional Transit Authority Greenway Board of Directors, reappoint David Moose as the alternate and Rick French.
Very good, gentlemen. You see the appointees there before you. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve all the appointees to the committees as given.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say thank you to these people that are willing to, willing to share their time on these various committees that, serve our community.
Absolutely. It's always good to get volunteers.
That's right.
It makes the process move and gets more people engaged also. More people engaged in the community. I think it's a benefit to all. So at this time, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 8, budget ordinance amendments, number 9 through 22. Mr. French, County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a number of these tonight. Budget amendment number 9 is to increase information technology budget for Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, 45,000, Lennings Mountain Tower upgrade, 32,000, core network switch replacement, 90,000, the backup replication software, 15,000, VMware NSX firewall, 33,000, and replacement of cameras, DVR system at detention at 26,500. Number 10 is to increase registered deeds budget to add a part-time position for 6 months during fiscal year 2022, and to increase the animal services budget to add a full-time animal control officer position. Number 11 is to increase the registered deeds budget to use restricted funds from the Automated Enhancement and Preservation Fund. Since the restricted funds were received in prior years, fund balance is being appropriated for expenditure in the current year. Number 12 is to increase the sheriff's office budget to replace a walkie-talkie that was lost in a house fire. Number 13 is to budget for a refund of North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice for 2021 funds that service providers were able to spend due to the classification of the juvenile cases and COVID restrictions. Service providers are reimbursing the county for the unspent funds. Number 14 is to increase the health department budget for a Duke Endowment grant to support the expansion of a comprehensive school-based oral health program. 15 is to increase the health department budget for federal grant funds for reopening school health liaison program. Number 16 is to increase the health department budget for federal grant funds for advancing equity program. 17 is to discontinue the practice of charging the emergency telephone system fund for IT staff costs to provide street addressing and database provisioning for 911 operations. These costs will no longer be considered an eligible use of 911 funds. Let's see. 18 is to reimburse the emergency telephone system fund for fiscal year 2020 expenditures that were reclassified to the general fund. The transfer is required by the NC 911 board based on their review of the county fiscal year 2020 911 revenue expenditure report. Number 19 is to decrease the telephone system fund budget to match the NC 911 fund review distribution that was approved by the state in fiscal year 2022. If a funding reconsideration is submitted and approved at a later date, the budget can be amended at that time for the additional funding. Number 20 is to adjust the multi-year capital project budget for revised costs from the bid opening for the splash pad and picnic shelter elements for the courthouse park project, and that's for $80,000. And number 21 is to increase the budget for fiscal year 2022 general fund transfer to the park improvements project for revised costs from the bid opening for the splash pad and picnic shelter elements of the courthouse park project. Park improvements are being accounted for in a multi-year project fund. The general fund has transferred a total of $1,376,299 to the park improvements fund over the past 2 years. And 22, to increase school capital improvements fund budget for school systems use of public school building capital fund grant monies for approved technology purchases. I think that's all.
I was gonna say, you didn't miss one, did you?
I don't think so.
All right, I was just checking.
And we did open
I
bids,
think
we
you
did
got
open
them all
bids.
in a line there, you know?
I
Hope so.
We did open bids on the splash pad, and we'll bring those to you in the October meeting.
We'll have the October meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, gentlemen, I entertain a motion at this time on budget amendments 9 through 22.
I'll make a motion on amendments number 9 through 22, that we approve as stated.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion?
This was all, there was no other requests made?
No, sir.
Thank you.
All those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Other business, county manager's report, Mr. Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One is we received our closed pending final audit statement and letter from the state concerning the Stony Point Elementary School wastewater project. Alexander County expended $741,863.25 of the $864,050 that, of the grant award. And so the only thing left on that project will be to submit the audit when it's completed. We also are looking at a grant, large grant that the COG has made us aware of. It's a $1 billion FEMA program grant. This is a national grant, and so we've looked at different programs. One of the items that was mentioned was some kind of alarm or siren system for flooding, so we're looking at that.
Use $1 billion.
And there's a 25% match, so we'll be coming back to you, but it's that's just sort of in the works. And also, just something we had talked earlier about making a lot of appointments. This is something that always sort of is a little bit troublesome to staff, that there's changes in federal requirements for long-term care, community advisory committee volunteers, and we have such a committee, and the federal government is requiring far more training for those individuals than we currently have. It's really hard to find volunteers for those positions. But for example, where they're now requiring 15-hour initial training, they're requiring 36 hours, and then 18 hours of continuing education, where it's now 10, and the list goes on. Just want to make you aware of that. We currently have 5 people serving on that board, and very kindly serve, as Commissioner Lael mentioned. But this means that effective October 1st, their training will have to be at this new level. So just want to make you aware. I'll get you the particulars about it.
Well, in the Western Piedmont Council of Governments putting stuff out, material out on that this time?
They're
gonna have
they're working on that, yes, sir.
I thought they had a video conference coming up.
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
The consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda as given in our packets.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Those opposed likewise, the motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we will adjourn the Alexander County Board of Commissioners meeting and to go into session with the Board of County Commissioners Consolidated Human Services Board meeting. And upon adjournment of that, we will go into a closed session with the Alexander County Board of Commissioners at that time. So at this time, gentlemen, I make a motion that we adjourn the County Commissioners meeting at this time for the Board of County Commissioners Consolidated Human Services Board meeting.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. The motion carries. At this time, I'd call the Board of County Commissioners Consolidated Human Services Board meeting into session.
Diane, how are you distributing those surveys? How are you distributing those surveys? How are you distributing? I saw you had only gotten 18 back. Is that 18?
Hey, I completed my homework in class, Diane. Miss Lowe, I completed my homework in class, so I don't have any homework. I turned mine in, so I was one. All right.
I wouldn't recommend he copy my paper.
Yeah, I remember the English class, you know. Hey, all right. I just had to say that.
It's gone, and what's left is gray. Yeah.
At this time, Leanne, if you would, please. Thank you.
We have no public comment.
Very
To
good.
start us off is our new Senior Center Director, Christy Hunt, is gonna tell you upcoming information from the Senior Center.
Hello. I would like to thank you, first of all, for allowing me the privilege of getting to serve our seniors. I promise to try to keep them as happy as I possibly can. Our senior center really, we do a lot of Medicare. Medicare is one of our biggest things that we do. We save people a lot of money. But we also have lots of good activities that I really wish that more seniors would come and enjoy with us. Our exercise classes are phenomenal. They are wonderful. We have, card games, wood carving, needlework, art classes, line dancing, card making, scrapbooking, all kinds of nice things to do. And as you can see by our pictures, that's, just one of our, couple of our seniors that are hanging out in the lobby just working on a puzzle. It's great to just come and socialize. So anybody is welcome to join us as long as you're a senior. It is privileged for that. And Medicare is coming up. We have Medicare open enrollment that begins October 15th and goes through December 7th. This is a very big time of year for us. Last year, we saved people over $903,000 just by switching their drug plans. Drug companies have the opportunity to change their formularies, so they change how they pay for the medicines. So this is why it's so important to make sure that we check those plans for them. We are having the medication forms that they are ready for somebody to pick up, or you can just call. Last year, we handled a lot just over the phone, and that is fine. We are trying to keep everybody just as safe as we possibly can. So just come by and we can talk to you. The Medicare commercials on TV is something we get a lot of questions about. We have answers. So if anybody would like to call us and talk to us about that, we can help with that. We are completely neutral on this. We give unbiased opinions. We can give you facts. So, but that's it. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Uh-huh.
Couple statements and questions. One is, I personally have given information to seniors to contact you gals up there to look into making sure they were on the right plan. But since I've been on the Board of Commissioners, I think you've hovered all over right at $1 million of
Yeah.
savings each year. So I just want to reiterate, the $1 million of savings each year is in our seniors' pockets and not being spent towards the wrong plan.
Correct.
But they are actually retaining that money themselves,
Yes.
okay?
So
So
they
that's
can,
real money.
yeah, they can spend it somewhere else.
I just want people to hear that.
Yeah,
I
they
already
can
knew the
keep it here
answer.
in the county. There's a
Um,
big difference in those plans.
The other thing is how much participation through COVID have you had with seniors and time that you have been open?
Not as much as I had hoped, but the ones who have came back have really enjoyed being back open. We lost a lot. It's very sad. We have lost a lot. I can't even begin to think of the number. We're just so happy to see the ones back. Our numbers are down just a little bit, but I think that as time goes on and we get past this virus, we're going to increase, and we're going to get back to where we should be.
Or are the seniors having a hesitation coming still?
They are.
Okay.
They are. I've had several phone calls, even with the Medicare, making sure that I will take care of theirs, their plans over the phone,
Gotcha.
because they are just really too scared to come back out. But we are doing everything possible to make sure that everyone is just as safe as can be. We are holding off on a couple of our bigger activities that cause a larger crowd, our bingos and our birthday lunches. We're not doing those right now, just simply because we have such a large crowd and we don't have enough space to spread people out 6 feet apart for that.
Sure.
So, but other than that, I mean, we really are experiencing a lot of regulars, and they are very happy to be back. Like I said, the exercise classes has been a big hit. I heard from several people that had said they lost a lot of muscle tone while we were closed just because they were not able to do their exercise. So I highly encourage people to just come check us out. It's a lot of fun. We have fun. It's, you know, the card games even, you know, they're wonderful. It's just a great place to be. I feel very privileged working there. And I've said this and I've said it, you know, lots before. It doesn't feel like a job. It's family and it's wonderful.
I, for one, very excited that you're in the position you're in.
Well, thank you.
I think you fill that position pretty well, and just looking forward to the COVID thing lightening up, disappearing, or something like that, and you guys get back to full throttle.
Me too. Me too. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Good job.
Good evening. I think I need to get over the senior center myself. I need to exercise. We don't have a whole lot. It doesn't seem like it's been that long since I was here last time. A few updates. We've had, with this resurgence of COVID, a increase of DSS staff impacted that have either been quarantined or were actually ill themselves. We've also, in the last few months, had an increase in the number of staff vacancies, especially in child welfare and Medicaid. Some of those positions we've had to post more than once because we haven't had enough applications come in. And unfortunately, we reached out to Vanguard, one of the contract companies that usually will help us, and they are getting so many requests from other counties that at this time, they have not been able to identify anyone to help us out. I should say, as of today, I heard out they might have a part-time person help us on adoptions, but other than that, we haven't got any assistance there. And then this has become this hard one, this very last one here. Due to parents not being there, attorneys being late, we've had a number of continuances in court hearings, and it's gotten to the point at this point that we are going to start losing some federal funding, because once you go beyond a year, some of them are 6 months, sometimes a year, without a case being heard with specific findings in that court order, the 4E funding is stopped until the hearing is held and those findings are made. That's, I think last I heard, we were somewhere around 7 cases that was going to start impacting us, which is 10-15%.
Question right there.
Pardon? Yes?
Where's the accountability? You made the statement of attorneys not being there or late, even parents not being there, showing up. Where's accountability at for both of those areas? Is there accountability of any sort?
It's a good question. I think recently we've been putting a little more pressure on the court, and we have seen in the last month that there is some movement there and making some changes, looking at how hearings are and holding, when they're allowed to be continued and not, and holding the attorneys accountable. We're hoping in the near future that's going to make some changes. It's the first time since I've been here that I've started to see some movement there.
So you're seeing some movement?
Yes.
I just think it's disappointing that we have children out here and we just can't keep the ball rolling for them, no matter what the excuse.
I can't disagree.
Mr. Pennell, I'll make one statement. It's been some years ago, and it was not in Alexander County, but I went to court, I was in the crowd. I was not indicted or anything like that. But anyway, and the judge, when she did show up, she had forgotten her laptop. And for the first 45 minutes of court, she was talking about a coconut cake. And, you know, and I remember saying, where's the, you know, thinking, where's the accountability for not only the attorneys or the parents, but also for the judges? You know, because they just, some, I think, just like with anything else, whether it's a doctor or an attorney or any other position, you know, there are better attorneys than others, there are better judges than others, there are attorneys that give a hoot, there are attorneys that don't, there are judges that give a hoot, there are judges that don't. And I kind of asked the same question, where's the accountability? And for a judge,
Well, they're elected.
they're elected. And I think for most attorneys, it's kind of, they don't really have anyone that necessarily holds their feet to the fire either. And like you said, it's terrible that we've got, you know, we have kids in the county that are hung out to dry, so to speak. And then it also causes, you know, DSS problems. It also causes the county problems because, I mean, it causes financial problems for the county. You know, and we end up having to spend taxpayer money, you know, where we shouldn't have to.
Well, local taxpayer money.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah, local tax, you know, local money, so, yeah, I don't know if there's a good answer to that.
I don't want my comment to be construed that I'm against all attorneys or judges.
No.
However, they're kids. They don't have a voice. And if we can't use our positions to make some noise through the county or whatnot, then, you know, that's sad on our part. So every month, I'll probably bring it up again until there's a change.
Okay, yep.
Everywhere you call, you get the COVID-19 disclaimer right up front, usually if it's a phone system, you know, leaving a message or anything. So it's just another, it is a real thing, but we still got to function, you know, and get through it. And thank you.
So some of what we've done on some of these same updates, I think last time I talked, I'm going into the next idea, that we had some new positions, the training position in particular, to help with turnover in the Medicaid. This says that those positions are in review. They have both been approved. The administrative assistant position has been posted, and the person for the training and QA specialist position has been selected, and we'll be starting that shortly. We also went back to our early COVID rotation and letting staff work from home more often to reduce exposure, especially for the half a dozen offices that have shared more than one person in the same room. We're making sure that we're not having any more exposure than necessary. We really have not increased the clients coming in. It's still mostly done over the phone. There's very few appointments, and people seem to actually really like that. We're able to be quite effective, and the state and feds have still allowed rolling review cases, so they're just being automatically approved, enrolled at this point, and that'll continue through the rest of this year. The last one here is just new information that as of this end of this year, water assistance will be added to the low-income energy program. So this is the first time it'll cover your water and waste treatment bills if you qualify under the new LEWAP program. Any questions on any of that? That's really all I have this time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
So I get to come and talk about the good stuff, right? COVID-19, that's what we've heard, I think, in everybody's topic tonight. I'm here to give the annual communicable disease update as well. I'm going to do it first, and then I'll go into the COVID update. I put the definition of communicable disease up here. I'm not gonna read it to you, and there's an administrative code that we have to, follow, and under that code, there's tons of information. If you are ever bored, you could go look it up and have tons of reading to do. I would like to emphasize our role in this is investigation. So we investigate circumstances surrounding the occurrence of disease, and that's to determine the authenticity of the report. So if a provider sends a report in to us, then we have to do all kinds of investigating before we submit that as an actual case to the state. So then we also have to determine control measures. We have to determine whether it's an outbreak or a cluster, and then once that's done, we have to complete and send a report to the state through it's called NCEDS, but it's their state program. Why is this important? Well, I think we can all look around and see that communicable disease, really up until COVID, we came once a year, gave you our annual report, and it was like, oh, okay, thanks, you know. But with COVID, we can see how that's impacted every person's life. So this is why it's important, is to get prevention and control out there, education. That's one of the biggest things, is education and prevention. So at the end of 2020, all of our focus went towards COVID-19. We still had to do the required, like the STDs and stuff like that, but all we could do every day is COVID. That even went into the nights. You know, we were getting called at night with positive cases where we had to call people and let them know, hey, you're positive, you have to stay at home for this amount of time. We had to ask where they'd been, who they'd been around. So this is what communicable disease looks like. So the investigating of the rates and the margins of the disease that are present, it's the best way to say, okay, why is this happening, and let's stop the continuation of the disease. So control measures. I know a lot of people didn't really hear a lot about quarantine and isolation until COVID. Lots of that was geared towards TB. And so with COVID-19, probably everybody has had a call or something from the health department or the state, and you've had to stay at home because you had COVID or you were around somebody that had COVID. So I put the differences of those up there, and the main difference is one has disease, the other has maybe been around somebody with disease. The next slide, I'm going to go in and look at what our communicable disease, STDs, and TB look like in 2020. Normally, our graph does not have almost 90% of a disease, but COVID definitely is the big pink area. So when you look at the other areas, the biggest one, other than COVID, is your chlamydia and gonorrhea. And those are always right there at the top every year. They do fluctuate some. I think, and I don't know this, but I think with 2020, people were at home more, or, you know, they weren't in school. We really didn't get to go out into the community and do our education with, we do 9th and 10th grade education at the high school twice a year. We didn't get to do that either. So I think the more education kids hear about prevention, the better. So hepatitis C is also up, but this is due to the state starting an increase in screening for hepatitis C. And then the 2019 screening led to lots of new treatments for hepatitis C, so that's been a good thing. The next slide. Naturally, like I said, COVID-19 was our biggest, and chlamydia, the last 5 years, that's been one that we've said every year that I've been here. I put it in yellow. The prevalence of STDs can be serious health concerns. It can cause infertility. It can also lead to...
May I ask you a question,
Yeah.
please? If you don't mind,
I mean, I know it says STDs. Most of us
Oh,
probably know
yes.
what it is.
Sexually
But there's a
trans-
lot of
yeah.
people that don't, and it sort of
Okay. Yeah.
bothers folks, if you don't mind.
It's sexually transmitted diseases. So those are the diseases that are communicable due to sexually transmitted or sexual contact. But also, you can, a mother can give that to a child during labor and delivery. So that's the one thing about the serious health concerns. It's not just for that one person, it can cause issues for others. The next slide is from 2015 to 2020, and it's going to look a little different this year because normally we do ours on the physical year, and we've decided to change it and go to the calendar year because that's what the state does on their rates, and so ours would be a better picture. Hopefully in the next year's slide will be a better picture of what it will look like. But again, you can see how the line goes all the way out for COVID this year. And you can, I know it's hard to see on this slide, but you can tell the zigzag lines every year for chlamydia and gonorrhea. So those are our biggest issues. The next slide is what do we do? And of course, I've already said education. Due to COVID, we did not get to do as much of that as what we typically do during the year. But when we have family planning clinics and our primary care clinics, we always assess and we diagnose and we treat diseases. When kids come in, we definitely do education, lengthy education with them during our family planning clinics. So we definitely try to get the the education piece out there to the young kids and the population who need the prevention. We also do surveillance, and this helps contain the spread within our community. So we changed this year, and we've already looked at half the year instead of doing the fiscal year. So the calendar year for 2020, again, it looks like gonorrhea and chlamydia are going to, even though they are going to be down, if they continue the same, they're still going to be our top sexually transmitted diseases. And hepatitis C looks like it's going to be up, and that's just due to increased screening. And of course, our COVID numbers are on an upward trend. And that was, this was about a week and a half ago when I submitted this. And I attended a Zoom meeting last week and through the state, and they were talking about COVID numbers. And they were saying that it was, it was at a, it was at a plateau. It was it had hit a peak and it was starting to stabilize. So that's a good thing. And the next slide will show you where we're at as of today. So we've had 5,911 cases of COVID to date. We had 398 cases in the last 14 days and 155 cases in the last 7 days. We've got 13 people in the hospital and 107 deaths to date. 41% of our citizens have had at least one dose of the vaccine. 37% of the citizens are fully vaccinated, and 4% are partially vaccinated. I will say, I went back today and looked at the last 2 weeks of this. We do this, we try to do this daily on our Facebook page, but I looked at the numbers, and it's definitely coming down. It was, on the 10th, it was 15.2 for our county, the rate of positivity, and 12.1 for North Carolina, and today's is 13.1, and the positivity rate is 10.3 for North Carolina. So it is coming down. So that we're, everybody ask what we think, and we could make our best educated guess, but I really think this disease is just going to have to run its course. If you look at the other countries that have already had this variant, it sort of shows the same type line bar graph that ours is going to for the US, but hopefully we're stabilized and will come down in these numbers. So the last slide, it says, what are we doing? We are testing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. You can call our office and we will put you on the list. And if you don't call, you just show up at 10 a.m. We have seen the testing numbers rise to where we've had to reroute our parking lot to get everybody in so that we're not blocking traffic. But we are vaccinating with regular doses, and I know everybody's heard about the third dose or the booster. So I'm going to give you a little different, what's the difference between the third dose and the booster. The third dose is for people who are immunocompromised, and they had the first 2 shots of the 2-shot series. They have come to realize through data that people who are on certain medications, they've had heart transplants, any type of transplants, that they maybe didn't get the full immunity from the first 2 shots. So that's called the third dose. A booster dose is for people who are not in that immunocompromised category, but they need a booster shot later on. That's going to be 6 months down the road. So the third dose can be 28 or 21 days after the first 2 for the third, but not everybody's in there, so it's very confusing. So call us, we'll explain what category you're in, but right now, the only one that is doing the booster dose is Pfizer. Now, we are looking any day for the other one to be approved, but Pfizer right now is the only one doing the booster. They're both doing the third dose, though. So if you were taking medications that made you immunocompromised, you would probably qualify to get that third dose of either one. We are educating the public. We're doing code red messages. We're putting it out on our Facebook. We try daily with that little the slide with the pictures, because it's easier for people just to look at those numbers instead of a long something for them to read. We actually have a COVID team that we meet with. It started out, we were monthly, and then we were every 2 weeks, and now we're weekly. So depending on the positivity rate for our county, that determines on how much we're meeting and what type of media or education we're putting out. And that's all I have, except for we have additional COVID fees that need to be approved. And this is for the third dose. Do you want me to do this? Do y'all have any questions before I do this piece?
I've got a question.
Uh-huh.
So do we have more positive cases in the school or in the general public?
I would say general public. The school system's positivity rate's not high. It's not very high as far as, and we've really not had any linkages for outbreaks or clusters.
And you said you were keeping up with numbers daily. So like, where all does your data come from daily?
Well, we have what's called NCEDS, that is our state database. So every positive case comes through there. We get numbers off of that. We put them on a spreadsheet. We get numbers from the school. We get numbers from doctor's offices. It's just
Even like drugstores?
Yeah, now those might take a couple of days to get, but the one that goes straight, if you have a lab and it goes to the state, they automatically filter into our system. But now when it's outside labs or other places, it might take several days, but we still put them in the date of the actual diagnosis. We put them on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, or a Google Docs, and we try to keep up with them.
So do we have like an actual number of positive current cases, like 7 days ago versus today, or not? Do we have that?
Yeah, that would be the one that says I think it was 398 for the last
14,
Yes, last 14 days, and then the 155 in the last 7 days.
and one more question. On that slide that we're currently looking at, where it says 41% of Alexander citizens have received at least one vaccine dose, and then straight across on the other side, it says 4% of Alexander citizens are partially vaccinated. What does those two mean? I would just think that one dose means you're partially vaccinated. That's why I'm asking the question. I'm
Well,
confused.
some of our population, they've already had disease, so they're not gonna fit into that category. These
Okay.
are just vaccination categories. Does that make sense? So there's some of our population that right now wouldn't be vaccinated because they've had disease.
I got you.
Just one question. The schools, do they send daily communication with y'all, or is it like weekly? Like if they have cases, do they call automatically, or are y'all checking with them, or do they contact you if there's something up at the school?
Yes, we're supposed to be in daily contact. The state puts in the toolkit, if you read the toolkit, it tells what they have to do. And just like any provider, if they have a positive, whether they were tested there or somewhere else, they're supposed to send that to the health department.
Okay, thanks.
One crazy question. I'm one of those people that have had COVID about, I'll say I've been, back in society. Well, I missed a commission meeting. And I went to an urgent care in Viewmont, in Hickory, and was tested there. You know, and it was a send-off, and they called back, you know, they're coming back and said, yes, it's positive, which I was pretty sure because I couldn't smell or taste anything. And I thought it was strange, but the Catawba County Health Department called me. Maybe, and this actually was right at the end of my my isolation or, quarantine period that, the doctor's office told me, since you started symptoms this day, you're actually contagious 3 days or so before that, and yada, yada, and told me, and so I hung out at my house for a long time. But I just thought it was strange that Catawba County Health Department contacted me. And so I just want, so I kind of thought to myself, so am I a Catawba County statistic because I got tested in Catawba County even though I live in Alexander County?
Well, and I
No.
hate to say this, but what is your address, is it?
No, our address is Taylorsville,
Okay.
but,
With Alexander County, some of our Bethlehem residents say Hickory,
right,
and so we have to make the determination depending on where you live, whether you're Catawba County or whether you're Alexander County. They may have called you initially because you had it in Catawba County and they just sent that, wherever you had it, just sent it to
right, they
Catawba
probably,
County.
yeah, I would say it was
Yeah.
Catawba Valley Medical
Yeah,
Center.
but if you
urgent care.
live in Alexander County, and once we've investigated that, you would be considered an Alexander County rate number.
I mean, I'm sure trying to keep up with this,
Oh,
the
it's been awful.
statistics and all
It's
this
been-
stuff.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it has to be virtually impossible. I mean, that's,
It's quite
we know, I mean, I'm
time-consuming.
sure there are people that have it. I mean, how many people have had it that didn't actually get tested? So we don't, there has to be a pretty significant percentage both ways that our statistics, and I don't just mean Alexander counties, but, North Carolina statistics and each county statistics and all that stuff, may not be dead on the money.
Right,
And-
right.
And it's not for lack of trying. It's
And we
just-
really do try,
It's just, I can't imagine trying to keep up with,
yeah, we really do try to, keep the numbers as valid and as real as we can. But it is hard, and like you said, we get calls a lot because, like you said, you got a phone call. We're having to call people and let them know, hey, number one, you're positive. Who have you been around? And then we have to call those people.
Right, and they do the same, for me. They asked me, they were like, do you
And
have any,
people don't
do you
understand,
live with
okay,
any
why did
family?
we
And I was
give that
like, yes.
information out? And we were
And then
like,
magically, all my, Molly got a text that said, you need to quarantine for this many days. Well, she had it too. And actually, we were on the we had it for almost 2 weeks when they contacted us, and it was just kind of weird. And, my 2 oldest daughters, they asked about them and their phone numbers, and they both got a text and all this stuff, and anyway, my wife and daughters were like, what in the world? Big Brother's watching, until they found out that they'd called me, and I had told them that, but.
yeah. And see, a lot of people don't understand that too. So hopefully I can get some education out there to people. You will probably get a phone call, and it's going to say, we can't tell you who you were around, but we will say you've been a contact, and so this is what we want you to do. And legally, we have to do that because it's a communicable disease.
Right.
Any other questions?
I was just sitting here thinking, are they gonna break it down from the COVID to also the Delta variant? And then what are they gonna do whenever the mute comes along? The mute's still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just now getting fired up. So, it's gonna be interesting what
They
they
have
do to see if we.
sequences. Yeah, they have a sequence test that they say they can break it down to see what the variant or the strain is. But it took it a while for North Carolina to start doing that because we were having so much COVID. And then now pretty much everything's that we're seeing right now is the Delta variant, the variant. And then, like you said, Mu's going to come, and I'm sure they'll do that sequence. And
I think sooner or later we'll end up having a vaccine or not a vaccine, okay? I'm gonna call it the COVID shot because it's gonna be like the flu. If you hit, hey, you're home free, but if you don't hit, which I didn't twice, but I'm just saying, I was on the flu shot, okay? But, I mean, I think that eventually that's what's going to happen to us. I mean, people just can't keep staying at home.
no.
And the thing that concerns me the most, even though the COVID's bad, what are we gonna do about these people who are already suffering from addictions and mental health issues? And they get the COVID and they have to stay at home? I mean, there's mental health problems out there, folks. And you're going to see some more of it here eventually. I mean, how much can you quarantine? How much can you really stay at home? And that's been my fear all along. And in talking to other folks across the state, that's their fear because so much money's been cut from mental health anyway. And now all of a sudden this comes along. What's the effect it's going to have on those folks? And it's going to be real. It's coming. It's coming. And it's that scares me is probably more than the COVID does because of the situations those folks can get into that have addictions and mental health issues anyway.
And I think that's, as public health, that we're trying to look at the broader picture too, to see, okay, what is it doing to the preschool age?
Right,
the
what's it doing
school
to children?
age,
Because
the-
I worry about I worry about the mental effect on kids.
And you heard the senior center, you heard the senior center, sometimes that's the only out they have and they hadn't gotten to get out, so
They look
it's
forward
from
that
young to
every
old.
week, so,
Yeah,
I think there's a lot more things that will come out of the COVID instead of just the COVID. And it's gonna be trying times for people in our country, especially those people that they don't have anybody to lean on.
right.
And that's why it's vitally important for folks just to pick up the phone and call the shut-ins, the people that can't get out, especially in the quarantine. Some of them can't talk because they gotta be sick, I'm telling you. I haven't been, but I know folks that have been, and I've talked to them every day. 2 of them were single. But, the whole point behind all of it is we really need to reach out to these people when they are sick and just check on them, especially those people who are living by themselves and check on them. That's going to be vitally important down the road. And I think everybody in this county and everybody sitting here, I mean, we're people. We relate, we care about people is what I'm trying to say, okay? And I think it's vitally important that we reach out to those folks that are living by themselves and check on them and make sure, because you don't have to be 90 years old It could be somebody that's 40 years old that just needs to hear a nice, sweet, kind voice and say, hey, you know, somebody really does care. And that goes a long way to giving that person a boost. So, you know, just my food for thought. I just think about that all the time, the mental health issue and what it's going to do to our people. You know,
Yeah, it's something we've really been talking about, just,
Yeah.
you know, in the school-age kids and college kids. I mean, it's every facet of life, every phase.
Yeah.
My, and Billy, you have daughters that are in high school and just graduated and such. And, you know, my daughter that's a senior this year, you know, well, they didn't get to have junior prom. And, you know, they didn't get to have this, and they didn't get to have that, and they didn't get to do all these things that every high school kid has always gotten to do, you know, and especially for, well, I won't say that, but, you know, my daughters feel like they've been shorted, they've been gypped. They've been, part of their high school experience has been taken away by COVID. You know, the fun parts of high school have been taken away by COVID. And, yeah. One other question that's a completely different subject. The STD numbers. I don't know, I guess it just they just kind of hit me, and I'm like, holy cow. And some of those some of those STDs, I don't even know what they are or how to pronounce them. But are most of the STDs that, you know, in the statistics, are they a certain age group? I mean, is there an age group that it's more prevalent, or is it
Typically, it's
all throughout?
18 to 25, and then your 25 to 49-year-olds.
Okay.
It depends pretty much which age group is which disease. And that's why I said we really target that high school age group. And, you know, with COVID, we didn't get to go in and do our education piece with them. So we try to target our education to whichever age group we're seeing it in. So typically, and really ours is following exactly like what the state's seeing as well across the board.
Because you know, I don't know why, but I guess I some of those diseases I kind of thought were gone.
Yeah, I know.
Almost, you know, because, you know, I don't know. But they're not.
No, definitely.
I think one of the stats that'll be interesting to watch will be suicide rates over the last 2-3 years up until today's date and even further. And then also depression, diagnosis, all that good stuff. And just see how bad it did affect our youth.
You know, Iredell County lost 4 young adults last year during COVID, during the shutdown. And, you know, you don't typically hear that high of a number. That's a high number for a young adult for suicide.
Well, if you're the parent, family,
Absolutely.
siblings, it's an extremely high number if that was your family member.
Yeah. And you don't typically look at boys being depressed. And I've had so many moms talk to us about their boys not being able to be in school with their buddies and seeing those buddies, you know, and not getting to do boy things. And I didn't have boys, I had girls, so I didn't even think about that. But, you know, you think about them being at home by themselves and not getting to, some of them, they're not driving age and they don't have phones, so they're isolated. So it's very scary what's in their little minds, you know, what's going on, because we've never done anything like this before. The parents have never been through this, so they don't really know what to tell them either. So it is scary.
Well, thank you very much for
I
the
do have
report.
one, though.
Oh, excuse me. We
the-
gotta take action on that item also.
Yes, the COVID number, we've got the third code to be able to charge a fee for that, so we need that approved. And so the codes for Pfizer and Moderna are listed for you, and so are the charges. So we can charge $45, and that's just an administration fee. It's not for the actual drug itself. It is just for our time.
But if the people don't have the money to pay it, they're still getting a shot if they want it.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely,
want to make sure,
absolutely.
you know,
Yes,
that
yeah,
people understand, you know,
Yeah, we
because,
would charge their insurance, and if the insurance doesn't pay, then they don't get a bill.
Is this coming from the change of insurance carriers no longer covering or doing free COVID? Or is this a different change?
This is just for the vaccine. The vaccine itself is free, but the government has said, since we're having to do the vaccinations and we're not really getting to do clinics, I think they have made a way for us to be able to at least charge a little bit or get some reimbursement
Some
from
reimbursement
insurance
back.
companies to help offset the loss.
These are the new codes for the boosters,
Yeah.
okay.
new codes.
Well, and I mean, Billy, I know what you mean when you say the vaccines are free.
But there isn't anything free.
Pfizer is
Oh, I know, yeah.
making a pile of money.
But the government's paying.
And if anybody thinks that Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, these other drug companies are just working their tails off to try to save the world, you're misinformed and confused. Because drug companies are businesses. And it's just, you know, I read something today that said that Pfizer says their vaccine's safe for 5 to 12-year-olds now. Well, I hate to say this, but Pfizer wants it to be safe for everyone because that's more of it they can make and more of it they can sell, because tax dollars are paying for the vaccines. And thankfully, it doesn't, thankfully it is quote-unquote free to the people that, to people that need it that can't afford it. And I mean, and that's the way we'd want it to be. But yeah, there's a drug company race going on right now. And they're pushing, and I'm not saying that the vaccines aren't, a very positive thing, but, they're pushing the FDA as hard as they can push them to approve things as quickly as they can approve them. If anybody's interested, Google the value of Pfizer and see what Pfizer's worth. And there's a reason that they're
And I
worth
will
that.
say, if there's any questions or concerns, anybody from the public's welcome to call. We'll give you over the phone advice and facts, because there's so much information out there. Some people are just so misinformed or confused, and definitely call us, and we'll definitely try to educate and let you make the best decision for you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank
At this
you.
time, gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion to approve the reimbursement rate.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the reimbursement rates for the COVID vaccine boosters.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is made and second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand. The motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, folks, for the report tonight. Did a good job. Thank you very much. Glad to have you here. At this time, this concludes our Alexander County Consolidated Human Services Board meeting, and we will stand adjourned. And at this time, we'll go back into session under the Alexander County Board of Commissioners. And I would make a motion now to go into closed session under North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11, paragraph A, subsection 4, 5, and 6, economic development, contractual, and personnel matters. Based on that, we will come back into session because we have a vote that we need to take on the opioid legislation, that the opioid settlement that was made several weeks ago. So we'll be getting some information on that while we're in closed session. We will re-adjourn for the primary purpose of calling for a vote on that issue. And the folks that in the radio land and the press that are here, if you're not here when we re-adjourn, I'm sure that Mr. French will pass the information back along to you tomorrow or send an email tonight, which either one that you'd prefer, that we'll take care of that so that you'll have that information on the decision that we will make. But that's the reason that we'll be back at coming into to adjournment, and that's the only voting decision that we will make at that time. and then we will go into adjournment. So, all in favor of going into closed session at this time? No, I need a second.
Second.
All right, motion's made, second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your right hand. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, folks.